Today, the cash flow factor. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, with the latest posts covering finance and prop news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Reverse factoring, which is a form of financial engineering, is on the rise. This is a technique used by a number of companies to dress their financial results. A recent AFR article has been picked up and discussed by one of my favourite finance sites, Wall Street, entitled Hidden Debt Loophole Becomes Popular with Australian Corporations. Australian engineering group UGL, which is working on large infrastructure projects such as Brisbane's Cross River Rail and Melbourne's metro trains, recently sent a letter to suppliers and subcontractors informing them that as of October the 15th, they will be paid 65 days after the end of the month in which their invoices are issued. The company's policy has been, until then, to settle invoices within 30 days. The letter also mentioned that if suppliers want to get paid sooner than the new 65-day period, they can get their money from UGL's new finance partner, Greensill Capital, one of the biggest players in the fast-growing supply chain financing industry, in an arrangement known as reverse factoring. But it will cost them. Reverse factoring is a controversial financing technique that played a major role in the collapse of UK construction giant Carillon, enabling it to conceal from investors, auditors and regulators the true magnitude of its debt until it was too late. Here's how it works. A company hires a financial intermediary, such as a bank or a specialist firm, such as Greensill, to pay a supplier promptly, for example 15 days after invoicing, in return for a discount of their invoices. The company repays the intermediary at a later date. In its letter to suppliers, UGL trumpeted that the payment changes would benefit both our businesses, though many suppliers struggle to see how. One subcontractor interviewed by the Australian Financial Review complained that the changes were outrageous and put small suppliers at a huge disadvantage since they did not have the power to challenge UGL. Some subcontractors contacted by AFR refused to be quoted out of fear of reprisal from UGL. CIMIC is one of Australia's largest construction and infrastructure groups, and it's majority owned by the German company Hochtief, which in turn is majority owned by Spanish consortium ACS. And in August, ACS, the world's seventh largest construction company, admitted it is making extensive use of both conventional factoring and reverse factoring across the group to more efficiently manage cash flows and match revenues and costs over the course of the year. Conventional factoring is a perfectly legitimate, albeit expensive, way for cash-strapped companies to speed up their cash flow. It involves selling account receivables, the amount a company has billed to its customers and expects to be paid on due time, at a discount to a third party, then collects the money from the customers. Reverse factoring, by contrast, is a much more precarious yet increasingly prevalent form of supply chain financing that is being used by large companies to effectively transform their supply chain into a bank. Put simply, if suppliers want to get paid in a reasonable period of time, they must pay an intermediary for the privilege. More importantly, in most countries there is no explicit accounting requirement to disclose reverse factoring transactions. The companies can effectively borrow the money from the third-party lender, thus incurring a debt without having to disclose it as debt, meaning it expands its borrowing while maintaining its leverage ratios. This process causes the debt to be understated. And credit rating agency Fitch warned last year that reverse factoring effectively served as a debt loophole and that the use of the instrument had ballooned, though no one knows by exactly how much, since there is so little disclosure. The use of an accounting loophole allows companies to extend payable days by the use of third-party supply chain financing without classifying this as debt, may be on the rise, according to Fitch Ratings. They said, "We believe the magnitude of this unreported debt-like financing could be considerable in individual cases and may have negative credit implications. Supply chain financing continues to be actively marketed by banks and other institutions in the burgeoning supply chain finance industry. A technique commonly referred to as reverse factoring was a key contributor to Carillon's liquidation, as it allowed the outsourcer to show an estimated £400 to £500 million of debt to financial institutions to be shown as other payables compared to reported net debt of £219 million. The debt classified as other payables was unnoticed by most market participants due to the near complete lack of disclosure about these practices and the effect on financial statements. Whether these programs require disclosure under accounting standards depends greatly on their construction, which in practice allows many companies not to disclose them. In the 6 months to June, CIMIC used reverse factoring and other supply chain financing techniques to increase its total debts payable to 159 days from 135 days in the previous 6 months, according to the New Zealand investment bank Jarden. By the end of June, its total factoring level was around $2 billion. More and more Australian companies are following the same playbook. Rail Group Pacific National told suppliers in May that it was using global financing group C2FO's services to facilitate what it calls accelerated payment of approved supplier invoices. And telecom giant Telstra has ramped up its exposure to reverse factoring more than 14-fold in the space of just 1 year, from $42 million to almost $600 million. This $551 million increase was also reportedly being provided, at least in part, by Greensteel, represents a staggering 18% of Telstra's 2019 free cash flow, according to a report by government firm Ownership Matters. Yet the company's credit is still rated A- by S&P Global, making it one of Australia's highest-rated industrial corporations. A Telstra spokesman said the company strongly denies that its accounts are not an accurate reflection of our business, adding, for good measure, that supply chain financing is a practice commonly used worldwide. It provides our suppliers the option of getting paid up front, while at the same time getting the benefits of Telstra's strong credit rating. Once again, it's a win-win for both company and suppliers. Yet in the last financial year, Telstra disclosed that it has extended payment terms to suppliers from 30 to 45 days to 30 to 90 days. And this is part of a persistent trend that is hurting the cash flows of small and family businesses across Australia, as revealed in a review of payment terms released in March by the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman. They said there is a persistent trend in Australia of payment times being extended beyond usual industry standards. Late payment, where businesses get paid beyond contract terms, adds to the cash flow problems faced by suppliers. It appears as though large Australian companies and multinationals apply these policies to improve their own working capital efficiencies at the expense of their suppliers. While the average day to get paid is declining, it is still above 30 days at an average of 36.74 days. This average, though, obscures the imbalances between large and small businesses, as large businesses are the worst for late payments and small businesses the fastest. This imbalance intensifies cash flow pressure for small and family businesses. Scottish Pacific, a large independent finance provider, estimates the costs of $234.6 billion in lost revenue. That is, SMEs would have generated more revenue if cash flow had been improved, as late payments accounted for a 43% downturn in cash flow. Small and family businesses must find other ways to finance the shortfall in their working capital. This places stresses on the smaller businesses with significant ramifications for solvency and mental health. The outcome? Small businesses cannot invest in growth and cannot increase employment. And since the Hayne Royal Commission, banks have tightened responsible lending standards across the board, which has caused a credit crunch for small businesses. And they are finding it increasingly difficult to demonstrate employee-like cash flow like a consumer. A high-growth entrepreneurial SME is unlikely to demonstrate cash flow in this way. And the increased bank focus on employee-like cash flow means more needs to be done by large corporations paying their suppliers on time. Where large corporates delay payments to their small business suppliers beyond the contracted payment time, small business cash flows is unpredictable and presents significant difficulties in their ability to access and service finance. Not only that, it's also more than likely that Australia will sooner or later have a carillon of its own on its hands. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.